All right, so it is setting up on Facebook and it is live. All right, so welcome everybody. This is another episode of Corona Hour with Paradise and Lisette. This is our episode 7, Eating Mindfully Through the Pandemic. And we have some wonderful guest speakers for you guys today. I hope you're as excited as I am because I'm really excited for this topic. So as always, I'll introduce myself. I'm Lisette Cortez. I'm a licensed psychologist in Florida. I work with OCD, anxiety, and eating disorders. And here's my co-host, Paradise.
Hi, I'm Paradise. I'm in New York. I am a journalist up here and I'm covering the coronavirus.
Cool. So we have our wonderful guest speakers today. Let us start with Carolina Gaviria. She's a bilingual Spanish licensed mental health counselor, a national certified counselor, and a certified eating disorder specialist. She's co-founder of Home for Balance and the Food and Mood Institute. She's currently practicing in Coconut Creek and Fort Lauderdale areas, and she's offering services online via a secure platform. Welcome, Carolina. And then we also have Yaneth Beltran. She's a certified eating disorders dietitian. She also specializes in OCD, and she's co-founder of the Food and Mood Institute. She currently practices in Coconut Creek and Weston. And Yaneth likes to take a holistic approach to wellness by providing nutritional counseling to clients that want to establish a healthy relationship with food. And she's also currently offering services via online telehealth. And so we'll talk about what that is, like a healthy relationship with food, which I think is so valuable.
Especially during this outbreak. I feel like this outbreak has been half, oh, what are we going to do in the labs? What are we going to do for a cure? And then half of it's been, what do we eat? Like after we all made our banana bread, it became like, what do we eat next? Like, how are we going to cope with it? We're not exercising as much. The gyms are closed. Are we working out at home? Are we not working out at home? What are we doing? What are we doing with our bodies? What are we doing when we grocery shop? When we go to the grocery store, all the food we normally want aren't there. So maybe reaching for the comfort foods. Like I can't find grapes. So I'm not eating grapes today. I might as well get chips. That's it. That's a wash. That's what I'm doing.
Oh my God, thank you for mentioning the banana bread. I will attest to having done at least once banana muffins. That's where it's at. I don't know. I think I need to get likes from everybody that's made banana bread during this pandemic. It's very popular.
I think it was the official food of the pandemic.
I think so. It should be. It's a staple nowadays. You know what I mean? What else are you going to do with your bananas?
So, I mean, with that, there's so much misinformation right now online about health and nutrition and the way our body should or should not look during all of this. And I just kind of want to touch on, but with both of you, what do you think about how coronavirus and this pandemic is affecting people in terms of their health? And when I say health, I mean like their weight, their relationship with food. How is this affecting that?
Thank you so much for your question, Paradise. And I appreciate you guys inviting us to, be with you here today, having this very important conversation. I think that, and you were mentioning banana bread and all these comfort foods that, people are, bringing home. And there are so many things going on. I think that first we have to acknowledge that we have this pandemic has layers, right? And when we peel the layers of the pandemic, we find that there are a lot of feelings. People are certainly struggling with anxiety, uncertainty, sadness, anger, right? A sense of grief and loss of, their normalcy. And I think that as we go deeper into this quarantine and for people even returning back to work, a lot is coming up for them. Yaneth, I know that you are the expert also on how nutritionally this, is affecting people.
Thank you. And I really want to thank you, Paradise and Lisette, for inviting us and for giving us the opportunity to speak to people, because I really feel that there are a lot of misconceptions in terms of, what should I buy, what should I eat, how I can keep myself in shape, during the quarantine. So a lot of worries and a lot of uncertainty is also coming up during this time. So I feel that one of the changes is that, for example, people, in order to prepare themselves for the quarantine, they end buying extra food, and then trying to spend time, like, you know, cooking, doing the banana bread that Lizette was talking about. And then having some like extra food at home is good because, you know, you're taking care of yourself. You're trying to, you know, have food for the rest for your family, just in case you try to get like extras. But at the same time, when you have extra food, it's also like, you know, like on the other side, it's like giving you the opportunity to have access to it and to cope with like feelings. Maybe when I feel this uncertainty, maybe when I'm craving for these like bananas, maybe when I'm craving for this chocolate cake, like the only obstacle I have between myself and the chocolate cake is walking or taking like 10 steps. So easily, you know, we end up like eating emotionally or overeating, or like, you know, eating more like throughout the day, and that can also affect like the eating patterns. So it's really difficult, and I feel that we need to and try not to be so hard on ourselves like during these like changes, because things aren't going to be perfect, and making changes, even positive changes, is like a little bit like challenging. Like imagine like yourself like being at home trying to, or like the work, trying to keep like busy, doing activities for like self-care, at the same time wanting to be healthy, wanting to exercise. Doing all of that is like kind of exhausting. So the best thing we can do is to have balance and try to manage these activities. It's impossible to, you know, try to achieve or like to plan on like losing certain amount of weight, or like this month I'm going to have this specific body shape, and that like brings up like some like distressful feelings, like disappointment, because, you know, I promised myself that this week I was going to exercise an hour every day and I was going to lose like 5 pounds by Saturday, and then it's Saturday, you're checking the weight, and that didn't happen. So a lot of like feelings that start like coming up, and that could like lead people to use like maladaptive behaviors to cope with the feelings. So I really feel that, you know, this is a great opportunity to try to improve the relationship with food. I will say that that's kind of like the best recommendation I can give you. To instead of like,
like
that?
how do I improve my relationship with food? Like,
So,
first of all, how do you know if you have an unhealthy relationship with food? And secondly, how do I improve that? How do I, like, if the chocolate is, if especially during the pandemic, if those 15 steps to the kitchen are the most steps I'm taking in the day, then that chocolate, the cake that may have been an okay indulgent before, now I'm taking in more calories than I'm burning off.
Oh, that's a good question.
So I would say that like the basic or the foundation to improve the relationship with food is understanding the intention behind getting food. Okay. That's super important, because like food, we need to see food as like something neutral. Like we all need to eat, right? But when I'm getting food to cope with my sadness, when I feel like some disappointment, I was expecting to have this like great phone call with my supervisor, and like he's calling me and the expectation wasn't achieved. I feel some frustration, right? So if in the moment I'm getting like this chocolate cake or like these chocolate chip cookies or the banana bread to cope with the feeling, that's when the connection like with food, like the relationship with food, needs to be improved. At the same time, like using food as a reward. Like for example, I had a great week. I think we all eat emotionally at times. Like I admit it. Like we all
anything I do, I'm like, oh, I finished writing something. I want my food reward. Like I'm like, I'm happy. You have to give me a treat, or else I won't work.
And that is absolutely normal, Paradise. You know, I think that we need to be aware first of our own eating, you know, our own patterns in relationship with food. So self-awareness is really important. You know, we all want to reward ourselves in some ways. When we do something hard, when we do something difficult that required a lot of ourselves. And right now, I think that we're stretching in many ways. You know, I can even imagine, and I'm one of those parents, I have teenagers, but for, you know, parents who have younger kids, trying to balance, you know, staying at home, working, cooking, not being able to entertain these young children, trying to balance the, you know, the homeschooling, it's too much. And I think that, you know, for many people, that is bringing up different emotions throughout the day. So self-awareness, I think that is really important to know the intention behind my behavior. Why am I eating? Am I eating because I'm physically hungry, or am I eating because I'm emotionally hungry?
Should I be asking myself this, like, on my way to the kitchen?
I
Like,
think,
am I really hungry right now and I'm opening the fridge, or is it just, do I just want to eat because I'm bored?
Yeah, you know, that is one of the questions. You know, if I did something really, and what else can I do before I go to the kitchen, right? And Yaneth said something interesting. She said, we all eat emotionally, right? Food is part of our lives. It's, you know, at least 3 times a day, we are faced with food, right? So this is a very strong relationship that we have with, you know, ways to nourish our bodies. So I think that it is important to differentiate. Why am I eating? Am I eating because I have a feeling, or am I eating because I'm, you know, because I'm really hungry. I'm physically hungry. Also, when we eat, right, we want to go deeper into, am I really present with my food, or am I just compulsively eating? Am I really sitting here, you know, with this food that I have in front of me? Am I really enjoying it, or am I really just eating because it's something to do, right?
So am I
I'm
watching
TV.
Netflix and just like stuffing my mouth? Is that kind of?
Yes.
I just want to make a point, guys, that I think all of you all have touched on, and even in our other talks, Paradise has been a definite common theme. And I think this is a matter of giving ourselves compassion as we go through this pandemic.
Yeah, be nice to you.
Number one. And I think that in many ways, compassion looks differently for each person. And when we're talking about the way we take care of our bodies and we nourish ourselves, that's so important. That's so valuable. And as you guys were mentioning, as Carolina and Yaneth noted, the checking in with ourselves, what's going on? As is an emotional reaction to something that's happening to me? Am I hungry because I need nourishment? I think that helps us really kind of target that mindful piece about eating. And so I was going to maybe ask of you guys if we can talk about what is emotionally eating versus mindful eating, because I think we were kind of getting to that question.
So I think I can start, like, you know, answering this question, and then like Carolina will give you support from the like therapeutic standpoint. But actually I feel that emotional eating is when like you're eating to manage the feelings. You're not necessarily eating because you're getting in touch with physical cues of hunger, you know, like responding to physical hunger with something neutral that is food. As Carolina said before, like, you know, you feel like some disappointment, or you feel like excitement, you had an exciting week, and then you go into the kitchen, and when you notice, you already finished like the whole like cake that you had in your hands. So or like when you feel sad, or like when, like, you know, like with this like quarantine, we experience like distressful feelings like sadness, like feeling lonely. You know, some people are not like close or don't live with like family members, so like experiencing this like sadness, like, and then trying to cope with the sadness by doing something that will get me connected with my family. So for example, Susie baking like chocolate chip cookies because that's the using her grandma recipe, because she's not living with her and she's afraid of like grandma like not doing well. So, you know, we all are like have like attachments with food. Feelings are super connected with food. We learn to eat since like we're little babies, and that's how we start like to get connected with the first person that we meet, that is like, you know, our mothers. So food and like feeling is super connected with love, and kind of in quotation marks, like good feelings. So who doesn't want to feel good? If you feel sad, the first thing that is in your head is like, oh my gosh, I want to feel happy. Like I want to change the feeling. So that's part of like kind of the emotional eating. Is also eating despite like feeling physically full, or not like feeling satisfaction, not being able to get with like physical cues of satisfaction. So I have been eating like 3 chocolate chip cookies, and I feel like, you know what, I'm really full, but they're really good, so I'm going to continue eating them. So at that point, like we're eating emotionally. or like craving only for this specific like food choice. Like I'm sitting in front of the TV and I see like an ad and they're like talking about like this like new a carrot cake. And I'm like craving for that specific food choice, even though I'm not feeling hungry. I finished dinner and I'm just like watching TV and I'm calling places trying to find out like, you know, like who can deliver me like, you know, this specific cake. So that's part of like the emotional eating also. Or again, like feeling like that you need to eat to avoid. Like avoidance is is an important component that we tend to use when we eat. So we avoid feelings by eating, or we can also avoid feelings by not eating. So the rationale behind that is feeling disconnected from what my body is telling me in the moment. And also sometimes like, you know, it's confusing what we experience. We might experience like kind of like pressure in the stomach from anxiety, and then we can get confused with, is this like hunger? Is this like fullness? I don't know, but even though, you know what, I'm going to have the cookies because I really need to eat something. So it's like responding like in the moment to like the feeling, because you're unable to tolerate that discomfort, or like pressure on your chest and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to drink something. Like, let me go get like, let me make a smoothie right now because I want to experience some like kind of like this relief. Oh, I felt so good like in the moment that I train my brain kind of on like the need to have the same behavior every time I experience this like discomfort in my body. So these are like certain things that we need to keep in mind in terms of like making a difference between emotional and mindful eating. Carolina,
Well,
I don't know if you would like
I know that when it comes to, and I'm sorry, Carolina, I don't want to interrupt you, but you know, when it does come to eating, just to build on that, is there a control aspect involved? Like, I may not be able to control everything else, but I can control that sandwich, and I can
absolutely.
make that.
If you think about like kids, like two of the more like challenging aspects in their life is potty train is super hard, right? And then like eating, like transitioning kids from like, you know, breastfeeding to like solid food is a challenge. I think that for like most moms. And that's because human beings are like, we want to control, like who doesn't? Like feeling in control means like at some point like feeling safe, like feeling this like sense of achievement. So why not? We all feel in control. We want to feel in control. That's why we end up like buying a house in this like neighborhood, or that's when we like have this like specific job. We all like want that. So like, for example, with kids, the two most important they have control over is like what they can take in and what like the things that leave like their body. So like if a little kid doesn't feel like eating a tomato, you can be like behind him all day long trying to give him like the tomato, and he's going to spit it out, he's going to make faces, he's going to cry. Not only you will know that he doesn't like it, but the whole neighborhood will understand that, like, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, we keep like growing, we keep learning that like feeling in control is good. So we keep like, we try to control what we eat, we try to control how much, you know, we weigh, we try to control our body shape, we try to control like how much time it will take me to do a task. Like life is around like controlling. Controlling could be a good like thing if we're able to manage that, but controlling can also be like, you know, challenging in terms of food. If I want to have like this specific, like achieve this like target weight, by controlling limiting my intake of like, for example, starches and fats. That's the most like common thing that people tend to do. That could lead to like limiting like, you know, the energy in my brain. So without like thinking about how much like limiting like certain food choices can affect like my physical and mental health, people end up making mistakes just because they're like super oriented on achieving this like specific like weight or this body shape. So they can easily end up like overeating at like times, or like emotionally eating, and that will affect that like at the end, like the goal. So that will lead to more frustration, disappointment, and then it's like this whole like cycle in which they will be like doing the yo-yo, like, you know, limiting the intake, losing some weight, and then like eating something and gaining weight. So that's why, like, there are like more than 1 million diets. If you go online, you will find out, like, name it, like, a lot of diets, and that's the reason why they don't work.
That makes sense. That makes sense, because it's like telling you what to do, and you're like, I have a 3-day rule with diets. Like, I can't go on day 1. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. Day 2, I'm like, okay. Day 2, I did it. Day 3, I'm like, I'm done. Like, I am so done. Like, I don't want to do this anymore.
And diets actually don't really work. And we have to also see diets as part of a bigger system, right?
Yeah.
Marketing and sales, it's a multi-billionaire type of business. I think that I really like what you were saying, Yaneth, about control and safety and how people tend to seek comfort, right? And when we're babies, we cry, mom comes, feed us or change us. So there is this sense of always, seeking safety, control, nourishment. We want to be comfortable, right? So I think that, food also comes to play a huge role in terms of what we can control. If I don't have control over anything that is going on, like the pandemic or anything like that, but I do have control over what I eat, right? And I can get a sense of, safety and comfort. A lot of people use food not only to avoid, feeling a certain way, but to numb feelings as well, and to create pleasurable feelings. Again, we go back to, I'm feeling sad. Maybe I can have a, chocolate milkshake, and that's going to make me feel better, right? So I
mean,
think
do you release dopamine when you eat? Like, is that one of those things that you just release those feel-good hormones? Does that happen?
And you can talk more about the hormones, Yaneth. We actually recently created a short 3-part emotional eating course, and Yaneth talked plenty about, stress hormones and how, they impact our bodies and our minds.
Yeah, so I really need to tell you that having a balanced meal plan, like including variety into the meal plan and making sure that we have like internal balance, because it's not only what is in front of you, it's how you cook it, it's the way how you eat it. It's like being mindful of the whole process of like making food and eating it. That is going to help you. Is helping you like regulate like the hormones, like, when the hormones are not like in balance, we experience like certain changes. Like cortisol is the hormones of like stress. So if you don't have enough like glucose in your brain, you're not going to be so like lovely that you're going to react as a jellyfish. Like, it's one of these days when you notice that people are coming to you and you're like, what do you need? Like, don't ask, like,
Yes, done that.
Hey, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Yeah, in part that's because, if we don't have fuel in our brain and like the manager of our body is not working properly, forget about it. I don't want like anyone to tell me what to do or how to do it. I multi performance activities throughout the day. So like when your brain doesn't have like enough like nutrients, like that will affect like the hormones, like serotonin, cortisol, and that at the same time will affect my appetite. So again, it's like the whole cycle. If the serotonin is like, too high or too low, that will make me feel like eating like more or eating less, as well as cortisol. So like having balance like with the hormones is like super important.
Can that work the opposite way? Like, could my feelings of comfort with food go with I'm not going to eat? Could it go with I am going to avoid food right now because I can control myself not eating. I can control myself, I will just eat. I will plan my meals so much that I will eat 10 grapes today, and that will be it. And that will be what I ate today. Can it go that way too? Like, I mean, are we talking about two very different extremes here?
Absolutely. No. And I think that, those are part of the same spectrum. Like we just have, 2 different sides of, the spectrum. And I think that now you're talking more about perhaps an eating disorder, right? When the person is so fixated on what they, put in their bodies to the extreme that they only allow themselves to eat certain, food items at certain times. They have different rituals around, their food. And yes, a lot of it has to do with control, but that's not the only, symptom or component to eating disorders. Eating disorders are very complex. And one of the things that we have to also consider is when we have been emotionally eating, right, and it has become the only coping mechanism I'm using, then that's when it becomes problematic. Everybody at a certain level eats emotionally, right? Because food is good and it's connected to sensations of pleasure, it's connected to memories. But when that's my primary coping mechanism, then that's when it becomes really an issue, or when I'm starting to see also that I'm worried about gaining weight. I want to perhaps use compensatory mechanisms, like I'm gonna then purge or over exercise. Or I'm feeling super distressed after eating something that I consider I did something bad, so I might feel guilty and ashamed. And that's when it is important to maybe reach out to a healthcare professional and explore that more in depth. Right now, I think that self-awareness, like noticing what exactly am I doing around food, with my body, with my movement, exercise, why am I doing it? Asking myself those questions can help me understand, not with the goal of judging it, but more with compassion, as Lisette and Yaneth were saying. I want to become curious about this. What is this what is the meaning of this? Am I using food because I'm really stressed about the pandemic, because I'm bored, because I'm sad, I'm grieving, I'm angry? Why am I doing this? And then using that as a way to start to maybe make some changes and nurture my feelings in more than one way, and nurture my body in other ways. Balance is not about having all the balls here equally balanced. Sometimes balance means I'm paying more attention to this, but then I'm going to pay more attention to that, and yet I'm keeping this sense of equilibrium, if that makes sense.
So how do we do this mindful habit, maintain eating good habits right now in all of this? Like, should I be keeping a food diary? Should I be talking to myself more? How do we maintain good habits when the way we normally eat has been changed? Like the way that we would because I think typically we would be going out maybe for a few meals. Now we're eating a little bit more at home. I think our relationship has changed a lot with food in the past 2 months, where the way we go to the grocery store has changed. Now we're going and we may be shopping a little bit more than we would, buying a little bit more food because I know all my meals are going to be home now. So how do I maintain those healthy habits in this environment? And is it different than what it would have been a few months ago before the shutdown?
And before we go into that, I also want to add and I think an added stressor that we're seeing with the media right now, because it's not only like our eating habits have changed, but also the way that people are viewing their bodies and their expectations of what they're supposed to be doing. The kind of toxic productivity that we've been seeing, that's like bombarding us like in so many different ways. I think that's something also to pay attention to, and it goes along with what you're saying, Paradise. How is it that we navigate all these pieces?
And I want to say something, because Paradise, that is not only overeating, it could be also seeing food in this way that I limit my choices in order to control, right? I have noticed that some of my patients are not using food because they want to punish themselves. So these past weeks have been really challenging for some of them, and they couldn't achieve all the expectations because it was just impossible to do that. So food as a reward, and they're trying to oh my gosh, successful week, a nice meal. They have been saying, you know what, I couldn't sell the amount of money that I needed to do, therefore I'm not going to eat. I don't deserve this because I wasn't good enough. So that's another thing that we need to look at. It's not only when people tend to eat more, it's also when people limit the intake in order to like cope again with like progress, achievements, and all this part of like being good.
And that is so interesting what you just said, because we tend to hear this a lot, you know, good foods, bad foods, you know, I was good, I didn't eat, or I only ate that, or I went to the gym, you know, all these different things that, you know, make or give morals, you know, to our relationship with food and our bodies. You know, I can't base my worthiness on, you know, my weight or you know, my relationship with it's there. These are two different things. So I need to also, you know, base or understand more the way I value myself and the way I'm nurturing my body and my feelings. You asked Paradise, how do we do this under these circumstances? And this is temporary. We're not going to be in quarantine forever. I think that we also need to put this into a context, right? And sometimes as human beings, we tend to struggle with all nothing type of thinking, right? And that gives us this sense of things are going to be forever. This is going to be just for a period of time. So what if for now we just give ourselves a pass? You know, if, you know, I'm eating a lot of banana bread, maybe that's, you know, that's what I need to do right now to, you know, but maybe I want to be curious about these. Maybe I want to also add a few other things. Maybe I want to talk to a friend as well. Maybe I want to write in my journal. Maybe I want to read a book about this. Maybe I can meditate or use an app that can help me, you know, calm down a little in terms of my anxiety or my sadness, or anything that, you know, I might be going through. So I think that a lot of this is, you know, finding what works for you, and what works for me might not be the same thing that works for everybody. We tend to self-medicate as a collective. Oh, did you hear about this? And then people go out and buy it, and so they buy, you know, supplements, vitamins, even the, you know, toilet paper at some point when people were kind of like going out and buying all this toilet paper. It was because they were seeing other people do it. So a lot of times we do things because other people are doing them, and not because it's good for me. So I think that we need to also take a look at that. What is good for me?
And I just want to point that out. Carolina was sharing that with me once, and it made so much more sense, because I think this is something that we're all kind of trying to wrap our heads around. Like, why do people go out and buy all this toilet paper? Like, what was the point? But I think you and I were sitting down and kind of like talking about this and what we see as a phenomenon in this situation that we're going through. And in many ways, diets, diet fads, you know, exercise routines are in a similar sense the same. It's I see it and everybody is doing that, and it seems like the right thing to do, so I must jump on that because it might just be the right thing to do. And we don't stop and question, like, how come, or how is that really gonna help me individually? So for some reason that kind of clicked more in my mind, like, oh, okay, I could see this phenomenon of people going out and buying like bulk toilet paper, which truly rationally we're like, okay, it doesn't necessarily make sense. But in many ways dieting, it can be the same way.
And thank you for mentioning that, because that, you know, for me, when this was happening, I was like making up all these stories in my head about why people were buying so much, you know, toilet paper. And one of the things that I noticed was the resemblance with, you know, dieting, and how restriction, right, when I deprive myself from foods, right, makes me even obsess more about food. Right. So for the, you know, if we use that analogy, when people were buying all this toilet paper, guess what? You would go to the store and then you were obsessed. I have to get it. I have to get the toilet paper. And it wasn't available anymore at some point. So we can see that, you know, the human mind acts in very interesting ways, and that we tend to do some, you know, many times what other people are doing instead of asking ourselves, what is that I need right now? And we go back to talking a little bit about our relationship with food and our bodies, and differentiating the physical hunger or physical sensations, physical fullness, from emotional fullness or emotional hunger, right? And I can also use my cognitive mind to differentiate these two. Let's say, for example, if I had breakfast or if I had lunch at 12:30 and it's 2 p.m. and I'm starving, but I had a good lunch. Why am I starving? Maybe this is not physical hunger. Maybe I'm feeling something in my body, because feelings have a felt sense, a sensation, a physical sensation in my body. For me, anxiety sometimes feels like butterflies in my stomach. My heart is racing. I'm a little sweaty. My mind is racing. So sometimes that can be confused, but with just hunger. I'm really, really hungry right now. But it doesn't make any sense rationally, right? So maybe I can use that as a little clue to also see if I'm really, physically hungry.
Which I think that highlights kind of like the difference between why people try to avoid feelings versus like the value of feeling our feelings. And in order to, like, going back to your original question, Paradise, to having like a better relationship with food and being able to eat more mindfully, I think it goes along with that. Like, how am I able to feel the feelings that I'm going through in order to respond to them in a more productive way?
Yeah, I mean, I know that for myself, like, I think we spoke about this a little before we went on, but I have a hard time knowing when I'm hungry. Like, sometimes I just don't know. Like, am I hungry, or I have no idea what hunger feels like sometimes. I just don't know. I don't know those cues. And I think part of it, and everyone's story is a little different, so to share about me, I have celiac disease. And when I eat gluten, I get these terrible stomach pains. And the only thing that makes it feel better is eating. Like, because I think my stomach is doing something, and like it makes the ouch go away. So if I feel anything, like it could just be like a normal stomach grumble or something, I'm like, I need to eat. Like that is just what my brain says. It's like eating makes the pain go away. Eating makes the ouch go away. And I went through so many years of that I can't differentiate anymore between like, so how, and I don't think, and maybe not everyone has celiac, but other people may feel the same way of like, normally when I feel this ouch, a cheeseburger helps. So maybe I should just eat more cheeseburger.
But I think that you said like something really important, Paradise, and it's like it goes along what Liz said and Carolina were like talking about, like what works for you. Because I don't know if like in reality in the moment you're experiencing like this discomfort from eating like a food item that is not like necessarily gluten free, or like you're trying to get food because you don't want to tolerate like pain. It's the association with like feelings. It could be both.
And when I was younger, like I would, because for me, if I eat it, I vomit immediately. Like if I eat gluten, my body's response is like, let's just get it out. We're vomiting now.
Get out.
And so normally I'm like, I don't want to vomit. I just don't want to do it. Like I don't want to do it. And like afterwards, I'm like, I need to eat something. Like I just got rid of it. I just need to eat it. Like it's just, that's where my brain goes. So I'm like, I got rid of food. We need to put more food in. Like that's how the brain goes.
So like hunger and fullness is like different for like every person, even though like hunger and fullness can exist. It is important to walk like the person through like the whole process of every single number, and explaining that like Susie experiencing like a hunger level of 1 is congruent because she has this specific like medical condition that like for Francesca a hunger level of like 3 is normal depending on like the meal plan, the gender. Like we need to keep in mind that a person is not only the weight, right? Like a person, we need to analyze like many factors when we're talking about like hunger or fullness or body shape or body weight. And also like an important concept is being able to balance what we need versus what we want to have like in the moment. Like in this applies for like anything. Like for example, if you go to the grocery store, like sometimes I witness myself like actually like looking at other people's like carts and seeing like to make sure that I had what I needed to get. So how come I'm basing what I need?
Cheese.
I know. I was like walking through like the aisles, And then like the first like feeling I experienced was like kind of like a feeling of like sadness when I look at like the chairs, like empty chairs, like, you know, like there's
Yeah.
no toilet paper, no, like, oh my gosh, what's going on? This sense of like an emergency, like something bad, something sad is happening. So I experienced like, you know, going to a grocery store like multiple times, trying to find what to buy, even though I didn't need anything. I had like everything in my house, but I was like walking around and trying to look at like, you know, another like people's carts and if they were getting cereal. I was like thinking like, do I have enough cereal? Let me see. Maybe not. And I was like going back to get more of like the cereal that I want to eat. So it's like changes are not like easy. And this is the first time we are experiencing like something like this. Like, I think that, you know, this is a new change and not like a super positive change for like everybody. So we need to feel compassion and start like increasing awareness into what we are experiencing. That is like, my experience is like individual. I'm not having the same experience as like you, Carolina, already said. So it's important to have balance between what I really need to do. Like, what is the need for me to have this like banana bread? What is the need for me to have this like, you know, cereal and milk right now? Do I really want it, or do I need it to cope with my feelings? So these are like kind of like certain things that we need to keep in mind. But I think, Paradise, you also ask about like, what can we do to manage this like better? So I think that, you know, being able to plan meals is important. Being able to work on a grocery shopping list so you don't make my mistake and you don't go back to get the cereal that you don't need. So getting only, you know, the groceries that you're going to use during the week, having balance and variety. So for example, if you really know that you're going to crave for like ice cream and you're going to end up like, you know, leaving your house, like exposing yourself, you know, like at like 2 p.m. So, you know, I better like buy like the ice cream, but I'm not going to buy the whole pint of ice cream. Maybe 2 individual servings of ice cream will help me like manage the feeling. Organizing also my eating patterns. Like if I have a different schedule now and my work, I was used to work from like 7 to 3 and now I work like from 11 to 11 p.m. So trying to manage that. I'm not going to, you know, like wake up, eat breakfast and then get back in bed and then no, let's work on some flexibility. Maybe I can have like one schedule for like these days when I'm working and a different schedule for my weekends. When can I feel like some like exercise, right? Like exercise is like challenging and different now. So what am I going to use? Can I like, you know, use like a YouTube video to kind of like do some aerobics, or am I going to spend like my whole day over exercising to have this specific like, you know, body shape or like this specific weight? So these are like certain tips that, you know, you can have in terms of like being able to manage this, like, you know, the whole process of eating during this like challenging time.
And I just wanted to mention, we have a comment from Adriana. She says, such a good reminder of need in terms of food choices. It really puts the priority in focus, which I think it makes so much sense because we're looking at really tapping into what is it that we need and how can I provide that for myself. And that's such an important concept of self-care, I think, when we're kind of going through all of this.
Absolutely. And I think that managing your feelings, really becoming more self-aware and increase your self-knowledge, you know, what is that I want? What is that I need? Expanding your coping repertoire, right? We want to have multiple ways of taking care of our feelings, not just, you know, one. And knowing or putting this into perspective, you know, this is temporary. How can I, you know, get myself some support systems, knowing that I'm not the only one. We are all in this together. We're all struggling. This is it. I really like what you said, Yaneth. You know, nobody really has experienced this before. This is a brand new experience, and we're creating a template on how it feels to really deal with something like this. And how this is going to be changing our lives, not just now, but, you know, maybe in the months to come. It's going to take a while. Even re-entering, you know, when the world opens up again and we re-enter the world, and How are we going to manage that transition in terms of the feelings of readjustment? When we have a new experience, we go through different stages. We go through a process of accommodation, adjustment, and finally we adapt, to those experiences. So I think that managing your feelings effectively and knowing that feelings are not final. We have a variety of feelings, learning how to name them. Where do I feel these feelings? I can have conflicted feelings about, something. I'm feeling safe at home, but I'm feeling sad that a lot of people have, to go out and still work and expose themselves, to the virus. How is it, when I'm happy that I'm at home, taking care of my kids, but I'm feeling also overwhelmed with them. So we can have a lot of different feelings going on at the same time. So I think that managing your emotions effectively is also part of becoming more aware and learning how to mindfully eat and mindfully be in the world, which is being more present, grounded. If I'm here, I'm here. I'm not on my phone, distracted. I think that when we go so fast through life and experiences, we get disconnected from our own bodies, our sensations, our emotions. So really knowing what's going on with me by being fully present and with my 5 senses in the here and now. That's another way of, learning more about myself and what I need, what I want as a person.
So when you say your 5 senses, like when I eat, should I be turning off my TV? Like, what can I do if I'm like starting off to be more mindful and present when I'm eating?
I think that there is not one, way of doing this. If I'm with friends and we're watching a movie, I can eat popcorn, right? And that's okay. But if I'm always eating in front of the TV, that might be, not a good idea when I'm trying to connect with my 5 senses, enjoy my food. And especially if I'm working toward learning more about my eating patterns, I really want to practice mindful eating to see what comes up. Maybe when I start to pay attention, I notice that I'm eating too fast, or that I'm taking small bites, or that I have certain rituals around my food. Or maybe a lot of anxiety comes up and I have this need to really eat fast. So, or it's too slow. It takes me an hour to complete a meal. So the more we pay attention, the more we're gonna know. I can change what I don't see, what I don't know. I have to become, aware first in order to be able to make some meaningful changes. So if I have the TV on, or if I'm reading and eating and also checking my email, how am I really fully present with one thing?
And I think a lot of parents, when they're feeding, especially with young children, you're just go ahead and eat and I'll just like take some mindless bites, or, well, he didn't finish his chicken nuggets, he has 2 left, I'm just going to eat them because they're going to go to waste. So I do think like parents, or if you are in charge of feeding anyone else, maybe an adult in your life, I do think it kind of like affects your own eating sometimes. So like, are there any tips or anything for them? Like if you're the mom with a 4-year-old, like what do you do for them?
Okay, I think that, when we have, I can't, expect my kid to learn something that I'm not willing to do. So I think that we have to walk the talk as a parent. If I want my child to have a healthy relationship with food, perhaps I need to sit down and allow myself the time to also, have a full meal, right? If I can ask my child to eat vegetables if I'm not willing to, to eat them, right? So I think that we need to model a lot of these behaviors that I'm trying to teach my child. And the ways I'm also dealing with my own emotions. One of the things that, we have seen throughout this, pandemic, because it has been an increase in domestic violence and, child abuse. So how am I managing my emotions when I'm overwhelmed with my child? Am I putting myself in timeout as well? How am I expressing, hey, you guys are being really loud and I'm trying to work. I'm feeling really frustrated right now. I need you to, please be quiet, go to your room, work on this puzzle. I'll be with you in 10 minutes. I need to really, cool down right now. So I think that using my words, getting to know myself better as a parent, it's really important to be able to actually model, those behaviors for my children.
And not just for parents, I feel like for your friends too, because I think your friend circle feeds off of it. And I'm not just talking about eating here, I'm with body image. If I'm always the one who's like, oh my God, I got so fat, I got this, I have that. I mean, it rubs off on the people around you. And you kind of, I've noticed with myself anyway, I try to be the one who's like, if anyone is like, oh, well, I feel fat, I'm like, that's not an emotion. You don't feel that, first of all. Secondly, like, you are like, why are you feeling this way? Because you look great. So if you're trying to look that, like, kind of put on a positive body image to kind of move forward, because no one's ever going to lose weight or eat better by being told you're fat, you don't eat well, you're lazy. No, I'm not going to want to change myself.
We can't criticize ourselves to a better version of ourselves. It just does not work that way.
You have to like get that love from people around you too.
Yeah, and you sometimes have to also, create some emotional distance and physical distance sometimes from those people who might be, saying these things to you. Sometimes, we have very toxic people in our lives, people who might be critical in ways that are not really helpful but hurtful. Sometimes we have people in our lives who they say very mean things to themselves, and we are there, or they don't really know how to manage their emotions, and we feel in a way that, okay, this is becoming overwhelming for me. So I have to also, set some boundaries around the people around me. But we were talking about parents, and I think that, yes, we're right. We can't, criticize ourselves toward a better version of ourselves. That is not going to happen. So as a parent, how can I also model a healthy relationship with my own body? And even going deeper, when my child says, I'm gaining weight, or I'm feeling fat, like fat, fat is not a feeling. Let's go deeper. What exactly is going on? My child might say, I have been watching a lot of videos, right? Social media. Of this or that person, or I have been told this or that. So I also want to be mindful of what my children, are being, in touch with and fed with. We feed our minds sometimes in ways that are not really helpful.
And going along the lines of like mindfulness, so we talk about mindful, like paying attention to our feelings in order to be able to respond to them better. And we were just getting another comment about the value of being mindful of our food in order to feel more satisfied with our food. And I think that's something that we overlook. So sometimes we will tend to overeat when we're not feeling satisfied. And if we don't give ourselves the opportunity to even experience what it's like to be satisfied, then forget it. We're not really going to be able to get there. And so even though we are in this like weird space, trying to juggle so many things, it's important to like slow down sometimes and really connect with the process of eating. And like Carlina was saying, model it for like the people around us, for, people who have kids, model that space of like, let's be in touch with how it feels to go ahead and eat this food. And I think that helps us be in touch not only with like the experience of eating, but also the emotions and what's deeper when we are going through like, a dinner.
And I feel that another important concept is being aware of how I am feeling in the moment. For example, if I'm eating with like my kids, like being aware of like the experience that I'm having in the moment, and like being intentional, having a goal. So if my goal is to help my child finish the meal, probably I will like make like a easy meal, for my kids, that, something that easy that they really like to eat. And at the same time, I can have like something similar to show like empathy, and also like being able to understand like what is like the experience that they're having in the moment to be able to respond, because like the response that I will provide to my kids is super important. Because if I'm sitting down and my daughter is like playing around with the food, is like not wanting to eat and is like making faces, probably she's like trying to get attention from me, for like many reasons, because like she didn't get a good grade, because she doesn't like the conversation that we're having, because like right before lunch or like dinner, I said like no to one request that she had. So she's trying to get my attention by like saying, you know what, you didn't give me this, so I'm not going to finish, or I'm going to take like longer to eat. So you notice that I'm experiencing like, some distress. If in the moment, as a parent, because it's normal to experience any like frustration, you said like, you know what, you gotta eat, you have to finish. And then you end up like talking about like consequences. Like if you don't finish in 10 minutes, I'm going to take like your phone away. That's going to add to the whole like chaos. So instead of like pointing out like the behavior, something that we need to do is like start talking about feelings and being aware not only of my feelings, but also of like what my kids are experiencing in the moment, to then know how to respond to them. Or like some parents sometimes end up like overeating with the kids. So it's Friday, and Susie just like finished like doing the full like homework, and she got an F. So you get an email, you're checking your email, and you notice the F, and then you like Susie comes to you crying, like feeling disappointed. I couldn't make it. I studied like really hard for this test, and I couldn't make it. And you're like, don't worry, honey. Let's eat ice cream. We're going to watch like TV, and we're going to have ice cream, so you will feel better. And at the same time, I will feel better because I'm making you feel better. So that's something that we also need to distinguish. Like, these are my feelings, these are your feelings, and there are different ways to cope with them, not only with food.
I like that. Like, take that, and I think that whether it's this, anxiety, or anything else, it starts with having a conversation with yourself, and to kind of being honest with you. And because I mean, you can lie to anyone else, you can't lie to your own intentions, like to yourself. So it's getting to know yourself on a better level. And I think the more you get used to having those conversations with yourself, the easier it gets, isn't it? I mean, like, I'm sure after a while you're not really thinking that hard about it. It's okay, yeah. It's a quick one, it's, am I hungry or not? Nope, not hungry. All right, done. Rather than, I think at the beginning, it's, am I hungry? What do I normally feel like when I'm hungry? Like, those conversations probably last a little longer, don't they? Like, so what's my good starting point? Like, if I'm at 0, what's my good starting point to talk to myself in this way?
Yeah, and you said something really interesting, Paradise, and it's the language that we use to talk to ourselves, right? I have to use a type of language that is encouraging, that it's, non-judgmental, that I want to be my own observer, and I want to really be honest with myself in order to learn who am I? What exactly am I doing? How am I showing up in the world? What is that I need to improve? What is the meaning of my own, existence here right now, right? And that's one aspect that I think that everybody needs to cultivate. Sometimes we are our biggest bullies, and we are very critical and judgmental, and sometimes that even impacts our relationship with other people. So I think that is really important to to acknowledge. And I really like what you said about not only observing when and how am I eating, why am I eating, but what are my feelings and what other coping mechanisms can I use to deal with my emotions. So I think that that was really important too.
Yeah. So we're coming to the end of our hour for today, guys. But I think it's so important to highlight the possibility and the practice of being able to build a good relationship with food by starting with building a good relationship with ourselves, letting go of the critical voice. I think that's one that always gets in the way. And I think that in many ways, as you guys touched on, it's about being able to feel our feelings, understand where they come from, and how are we able to manage and deal with them in a way that's useful to us. I always like to kind of step back and not say the right or wrong, because I don't think there's a right or wrong. It's more about what's going to be useful for me. And then in a sense, like, it may not be the same that is useful for somebody else, but I think that it's tapping into like your own individual experience.
And it's a lot of trial and error. So be nice to yourself, because you are gonna, you're gonna find out something that doesn't work for you, and that's okay.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you saying that. I also want to thank you for inviting us to, your show here on,
Thank
Facebook.
you for coming.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to say, if there is one takeaway that people can, really, have right now, is this is temporary. If you gain, some pounds during this pandemic, things are not going to be like this forever. You're not your weight, and your weight doesn't determine, your health or your worthiness. So I think that when we go back out and we go back to eating the way we were eating and moving more, then we're going to be, maybe losing those, pounds. But right now, it is what it is. And I think that it is important to become more observant of our own behaviors, and maybe make some changes and adjustments if you need, but give yourself, be a friend to yourself. That's all I can say.
Fat phobia does not help anybody, so like, let's just get beyond that.
Yes.
No, it only makes things worse. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I will also say, like, feeling compassion is super important, and knowing that making mistakes is okay. We all make mistakes, and it's okay. Even when you make mistakes, like, something good comes up, like, from that. You're learning. This is a learning experience. And we all are, like, dealing with the same, like, in terms of, like, food, in terms of weight, in terms of, like, being at home, feeling afraid of, like, leaving the house, or maybe, feeling afraid of staying, in the house. So we all experience, like, different, like, feelings, and sometimes, like, mixed feelings, like, at the same time, and that's okay.
Definitely. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. It's so wonderful to have you.
Thank you.
Carolina, Yaneth, can you guys just let us know, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Okay, so you can always reach me via email, Carolina Gaviria, mhc@gmail.com, or through my website, www.solutionsinTherapy.com or homeforbalance.com. Thank you.
And for me, it will be my email, and my email is easy. It's Yaneth Beltran, my first and last name, @gmail.com, and also at, like, Home for Balance. Thank you so much, guys, for inviting us today.
Thank you both for coming. This is a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We really appreciate you guys sharing with us and being part of our talk. And very excited also for next week. We want to invite you guys to join us here once more. We're going to have John Poles. He's a licensed clinical social worker, and he'll be talking to us about substance abuse during the pandemic, which I know is a topic that's come up quite a bit for a lot of people. So hopefully everybody can tune in next Friday. We look forward to having you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thanks for participating. Take care.